there was a report this week about Saturn's rings disappearing, which I find hard to believe. But this is what this article is talking about. So I shall bring up a picture of Saturn that's associated with this article. There it is. There's good old Saturn. We are back on streaming again. So we are back on the internet. Will Saturn's rings really disappear by 2025? And an astronomer explains, November 10. If you can get your hands on a telescope, there are a few sights more spectacular than the magnificent ringed planet Saturn. Currently, Saturn is clearly visible in the evening sky, and its highest just above sunset. It's the ideal time to use a telescope or binoculars to get a good view of the solar system's sixth planet and famous rings. But in the past few days, a slew of articles have run like wildfire through social media. Saturn's rings, those articles claim, are rapidly disappearing and will be gone by 2025. So, what's the story? Could the next couple of months before Saturn drops out of view in the evening sky really be our last chance to see its mighty rings? The short answer is no. While it's true that the rings will become almost invisible from Earth in 2025, this is neither a surprise nor reason to panic. The rings will reappear soon thereafter, and here's why. Tipping and tilting of Earth. To understand why our view of the Saturn changes, let's begin by considering Earth's on its constant journey around the Sun. That journey takes us through the seasons, from winter to spring, summer and autumn, and then back again. What causes the seasons? Put simply, Earth is tilted toward one side and is seen from the sun. Our equator is tilted by 23.5 degrees from the plane of our orbit. The result? As we move around the sun, we alternatively tip one hemisphere and then the other towards our star. When your home hemisphere is tilted more towards the sun, you get longer days than nights and experience spring and summer. When you're tilted away, you get shorter days and longer nights and experience autumn and winter. From the sun's viewpoint, Earth appears to nod up and down, alternatively showing off its hemispheres as it moves around our star. Now let's move on to Saturn. Just like Earth, Saturn experiences seasons more than 29 times longer than ours. Our Earth's equator is tilted by 23.5 degrees. Saturn's equator has a 26.7 degree tilt. The result, as Saturn moves through its 29.4-year orbit around the Sun, it also appears to nod up and down as seen from both Earth and the Sun. What about Saturn's rings? Well, the planet's enormous ring system comprises of bits of ice, dust and rocks spread out over a huge distance, just over 280,000 kilometres from the planet. But it's very thin. In most places, just tens of metres thick. The rings orbit directly above Saturn's equator, and so too are tilted to the plane of Saturn's orbit. The rings are so thin that, seen from a distance, they appear to vanish when edge on. You can visualize this easily by grabbing a sheet of paper and rotating it until it is edge on, and the paper almost vanishes from view. As Saturn moves around the Sun, our viewpoint changes. For half the orbit, its northern hemisphere is tilted towards us, and the northern face of the planet's rings is tipped away our way. When Saturn is on the other side of the Sun, its southern hemisphere is pointed our way. And for the same reason, we see the southern face of the planet's rings tilted our way. The best way to illustrate this is to get your sheet of paper and hold it horizontally, parallel to the ground at eye level. Now I'll move the paper down towards the ground a few inches, and what do you see? You see the upper side of the paper come into view. More paper back up. Move the paper back up above your eye line to hold it above you, and you can see underside of the paper. But as it passes through your eye level, the paper will all but disappear. And there's a little graphic here that I've got running too, which I shall run that. There it is. That's what we're talking about. That's a little graphic that's running there. um, so this happens regularly, and the last time was in 2009 when the rings gradually became visible again over the course of a few months. The rings will be edge on once again in March 2025, when they'll gradually come back into view as seen through larger telescopes before sliding out of view again in November 2025. Thereafter, the rings will gradually get more and more obvious, reappearing first to the largest telescopes over the months that follow. Nothing to worry about. If you want to clearly see Saturn's rings, now is your best chance, at least until 2027 and or 2028. So there it is. Saturn's rings are not disappearing as such. All right. You're tuned to VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria. We shall now cross over to Tamitha's solar report, which goes for 5 minutes. And let's see what the latest is with Tamitha.
We're coming down from a big solar storm that gave us aurora in places like China, Greece, Texas, and Perth, Australia. And a new flare emerges on the Earth-facing disk that might bring up activity once again. Those stories and more in the spotlight this week. Space weather this week is definitely calming down from that massive solar storm that we had just the other day that brought aurora clear down to low latitudes like China and Greece and Perth, Australia and Texas and California. There were so many different places. Now as we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, the main culprit for some extra aurora that we've been dealing with is this coronal hole right here. This coronal hole is sending us some fast solar wind. It's kind of like a fast wind chaser. Now it's not enough to bring aurora down to mid-latitudes anymore, so the shows are going to remain up at mid-latitudes, up at high latitudes, but it's going to remain around for the next day or two before things totally calm down. Now, as we continue taking a look at the rest part of the disk, this region 3483, look at this thing. Look how fast it's growing. This region right here has now become a big flare player, and even though right now the risk for radio blackouts at the R1 to R2 level is staying pretty low, we're definitely watching it because it's growing so quickly, and that may boost the activity. It's rotating right through the Earth strike zone right now, along with region 3484, which is a region that's also just beginning to kind of peek through. And so we're going to be watching these over the next couple days to see what they're going to do, and it could mean big solar storms might be on the menu once again. Now, switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are dealing with the fast solar wind from that coronal hole that you saw on the Earth-facing disk, and it's going to give us high latitudes. We're going to have active conditions over the next couple days with about a 20% chance of a major storm, and that's going to, settle down a bit as we move into the 11th and 12th through the weekend and into next week. We should be back to reasonably calm conditions, even at high latitudes, unless, of course, that new region ends up sending us a solar storm or two. We'll just have to wait and see when it comes to that. Now, at mid-latitudes, well, we are still dealing with some fast solar wind. We only have about a 15% chance of minor storm conditions, and that's only going to last about through the 9th before things really settle down, and that will bring us to unsettled conditions throughout the rest of the week and into next week, unless, of course, we have a new solar storm launch. But otherwise, you're going to be able to deal with just kind of looking over your aurora photos and enjoying. Now, switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout over the coming week, we are sitting at about the mid-140s for solar flux. Now, that number may rise with this new active region in Earth view. We're not exactly sure when, how high that solar flux will get, but we do have a couple regions on the far side of the sun that could also cause some solar flux to boost for us, and that will happen probably Sunday into Monday. Meanwhile, we're only sitting at about a 10% chance of the R1 to R2 level radio blackouts. These are M-class flares, and that will be over the next day or so. Again, that risk may rise considerably depending upon how these new regions act over the next few days, but we should be remaining pretty much clear of R3 level radio blackouts. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, You shouldn't have too much trouble on the bands over the next couple days and possibly in through this week, but you never know, so stay vigilant. Now, switching to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the coming week, everything continues to be in the green. We are at the D1 normal range. This is for you aviators at flight level 360. And that does also means that we're in the S0 range for everyone else. This means that we are definitely staying quiet. We don't have any risk for big radiation storms, even from those new regions that are beginning to become active. So you frequent flyers, and this means aircrew and high-risk passengers, we're sitting at about a 1% risk for radiation storms. That may rise as we get closer to the end of the week, but I doubt it. I think everything will stay in the green, and so you're all in the clear. So the space weather this week is actually pretty good. We're calming down quite a bit from that massive solar storm that we had just the other day. And now we're just dealing with some fast solar wind from that coronal hole that's continuing to rotate through the Earth strike zone. Doesn't look like we have much in the way of future storms at the moment, but you'll never know, especially if that region 3483 ends up becoming a solar storm producer. But we'll just have to keep our eyes on it and hope that, maybe things will be quiet for a while. I'm Pamela the Scove, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
All right. Thank you, Timothy. You're tuned to VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel. And I think, yes, we'll finish with what spaceweather.com has. I had so many other things to talk about tonight. An hour is just not long enough. All right. According to spaceweather.com, and I'll just bring up the disk of the sun. So the solar wind is currently at a speed of 574.2 kilometers a second at a density of 1.15 protons per cubic centimeter. There are currently 6 sunspots on the disk of the sun side that's facing us right now. Sunspot number is 93. The radio sun is currently sitting at 139 solar flux units, measured at a wavelength of 10.7 centimeters. The current auroral oval, I didn't bring that across. Oh, dear me. I do have a picture of the aurora here, so let me just bring it up. It's not that big, though. Okay, there it is. For those watching YouTube and the repeater. That's the current auroral australis glow ring over Antarctica. It has been quite obvious in the last week or so. In fact, there's been there's been more than a couple. Quite a few decent pictures were taken of the aurora from Sea Lake event at Tyrrell, and also down at also off Brighton Beach. There was a photograph taken. So if I had thought about it, I would have had that to show. But anyway, yes, so there's not much in the way of auroral activity at this moment as we speak. Having said all that, the KP index, planetary K index, is currently 2.67, which is considered quiet. The 24-hour max KP figure currently is 3.67, which is considered quiet. And something called a polar cap absorption event. A minor polar cap absorption event is underway on November 10. As a result of energetic protons accelerated toward our planet by yesterday's halo CME, This means shortwave radio transmissions inside the Arctic and Antarctic circles may be absorbed due to extra ionization in the Earth's upper atmosphere, a polar cap absorption event. Another just CME is heading for Earth. Coronagraphs on board the Solar and Heliosphere Observatory, SOHO, saw it leaving the Sun on November 9. As Tamitha says, things are afoot. Estimated time of arrival is the 11th of November. Both NOAA and NASA models agree that the cloud will strike on Saturday around 1800 Universal Time. Its impact could spark a G2 class geomagnetic storm, not quite as strong as the G3 class event of November 5, but still enough to produce auroras in northern tier US states from New York to Washington, and potentially downstairs as well. All right. And of course, finally, as of November 10, 2023, there were potentially 2,349 potential hazardous asteroids. 2,349. All right, that's it for tonight. I shall conclude there. I was going to show this too. That chart on the screen right now is the latest for our solar cycle 25, where we are at the moment on the scheme of things. So we haven't quite peaked yet. We're still got a little ways to go for solar cycle 25 to peak. But if you go by the diagram there produced by NASA, where the peak is still sort of hovering around mid 2024, 25 onto 2026. So we've still got quite a number of years of solar activity to deal with here. Okay, where's my camera? Okay, I think we shall call it quits. Thanks everybody for listening tonight and tuning in, and everybody up there on Discord channel. Thanks Richard, Mitch, VK3ZT. All right. I'll try and keep that in mind about kissing toads. Martin and Steve and Bill, I think you're back on ATV, Bill, because we're transmitting TV now, so you probably would have caught that. So you should be right there. And Clint's back on another stream. Yep, okay. And Kim 5 USA, he's saying, stay hydrated, get well fast. Thanks for your efforts tonight. No worries there, Kim. Yeah, I struggled because I can feel my head floating. it's just in and out a little bit there. I'm surprised I actually made an attempt to do a broadcast tonight at all. Anyway, all right. I shall now go across to the frequency and see if there's any stations wishing to check in for tonight. Where's my headphones? I'll take my headphones out. Actually, no, that's all right. I'll just take them off. Oh, that's better. All right. This is VK3 EKH listening 3541 kilohertz for any stations wishing to check in. All right, now I've got three stations there, VK3 AOB, VK3 TJS, VK7 JAH. Was there anybody else? All right, I know there's another station there. It's fairly weak. VK3ZT, VK3JR, VK3VCL. Who else is out there? Was there a VK2 there? VK2 Golf. I think it was VK2 Golf Quebec Radio, I think, yes? Beauty, no worries at all. Okay. And I think there's a VK6 calling, and you're pretty weak. I'm not sure. We'll give it another go. Is there a VK6 there? VK3 EKH listening? I think it was VK6 Alpha Alpha Zulu. Is that right?